Welcome to another episode of the Growth Design Podcast. My name is Ini, and unfortunately today I don't have my co-host with me. It's just me for the first time by myself, but it doesn't mean the conversation is going to be any less fantastic. We have an incredible guest. His name is Dan. Hello, Dan.
Hello, how you doing?
Great. Thank you for coming on the podcast. With Dan, we're going to be talking about an exciting section of growth design meets X, which you'll find out in just a second. And the reason I find this exciting is because of my background as well, coming from brand and marketing design into product design. And I found it to be, the more we talk about growth design, we haven't explored this part basically of growth design as much. So meeting Dan, which I met him and Tim at the Figma office earlier this year, and they were giving a talk about their agency, what they work on. And I was mind blown, just like, this is incredible, because it was such an interesting niche. So we're going to get into all of that. And the X that I was referring to basically is marketing. It is incredible to see someone or a couple of founders who are exploring that meeting point of growth design and marketing. And Dan is a director and one of the co-founders of one of my favorite agencies, MakeBuild is the name. What I love the most about them, like I've said earlier, has been their ability to sort of lean into their zone of genius, and that's just growth design for marketing teams and agencies. And they're sort of supercharging all of that with Webflow as the superpower, So I've talked for too long. I'm going to let Dan, in his own words, just tell us a bit about yourself and also the story behind MakeBuild.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's rare that I get to do these, but I love talking. And I love talking especially about all things design and low code and Webflow. So yeah, you'll be having to shut me up. But yeah, so to give you a brief intro. So yeah, I'm Dan, one of the directors at MakeBuild. We're an agency based here in London, a digital web agency focused primarily on creating high-performing websites for marketing teams. We work with a range of clients across industries. We can talk a bit about that afterwards. But our focus is around just getting great design, simple development with low-code tools, and now increasingly growth and optimization of those websites. And we started MakeBuild 4 years ago. So picked a nice quiet time, nothing going on in the world, just, March 2020, just, nice and stable to start our agency. Yeah, just needed something else to occupy ourselves. And actually it was a bit of a side project while we met as teachers. We were teaching UX design at a bootcamp. And one of the things which kept coming up was actually our students were asking, what kind of platform should we use to create our portfolios? And Webflow had been floated a couple of times. People were using ReadyMag, people were using WordPress, whatever. And Tim, my co-instructor at the bootcamp, kind of said, well, actually, I've been dabbling with Webflow and it seems interesting. I don't know whether it's a bit overkill for a portfolio, but the idea started to percolate there around kind of using Webflow more extensively. Then we collaborated on some side projects, just a bit of freelance work, and then once we'd both left our role teaching, we just decided to kind of make a go of it. We had a really fun time working with each other. Tim's background's kind of, I would call him like a heavy hitter designer, kind of graphic design background, visual design, worked in a font foundry. My background was a little bit more product design, I suppose. I was a consultant for kind of a big consulting company for many years, and kind of combining those two skill sets around designing in kind of product design and consultancies and designing in kind of small agencies and font foundries and all that stuff created a really interesting mix. And yeah, we've been going about 4 years now and really honed in that niche of helping marketers launch great marketing sites.
That's incredible, honestly. And yeah, I can definitely relate to Tim's background. It's what I was saying earlier. Just coming from that visual graphics design background and transitioning into product design, and then for yourself, coming from marketing and graphics design background, and that's like super helpful. And I can also relate to actually running an agency in March 2020. So that's incredible. Just being bored at home and starting something from nothing, really. I recall as well Webflow being a thing back then. I started to dabble around the same time, but now I'm curious because there are so many tools in the industry today, right? There is Framer, which is the love of my life. now. But then it's like, what made you sort of focus on Webflow? Why Webflow?
Really good question. And yeah, we get this question quite a lot because we have focused in on Webflow now. We call ourselves kind of a Webflow specialist agency. We introduce ourselves as a design digital agency, really. But our tool of choice is Webflow. And there's a few reasons. I think as a tool, it's come a long way. So when we started using it, it'd been around for a few years, but it's still a bit basic. It's come leaps and bounds recently. And actually, I was just at Webflow's conference in London a couple of weeks back, and they were talking about new features and the roadmap, and it's crazy how quickly they're moving the product on. So kudos to the team over there who are doing great stuff. So I think
I might be porting back then.
Well, maybe, and we have dabbled with Framer, and I think it's also an amazing tool, just slightly different use cases. I think for us, the main reasons, there's two. One is kind of the platform itself and how developed it is, and the other one is the business opportunity. So as a platform, it allows us to move really quickly from our designs into build. Previously, we'd use tools like WordPress. We've done some kind of more classic full stack kind of hand-coded stuff. We've built Shopify sites. We've done all this kind of stuff. And for us, it's a nice balance of being able to use custom code if you want to extend the site. But for a lot of the basics, it's drag and drop. You can create the site as you see fit, but it's also got some of those great features for designers, for design-led websites with their interactions and animations. And as a tool, there's just no infrastructure to manage. So one of the things about building websites these days, especially for big clients, is you might have to spin up servers and maintain plugins and all that kind of stuff in WordPress days. It's just the most boring bit of building a website and just tedious and a bit of a security problem. Webflow handles all of that. So as a tool, we think it's great. And as a business opportunity, as an agency, that wasn't what first drew us to it, but now we're kind of a bit more embedded in the Webflow ecosystem. We've got a really good partnership with Webflow, so one of their premium partners at the enterprise level. So we regularly work with Webflow about new leads and talk about new projects that are coming into their pipeline and ours, and collaborate to see how we can best serve those clients. Yeah, so we've got a really good partnership with them. We've got a partner manager here in the UK. We regularly meet the Webflow global team, and it's just because it's a growing platform and a platform that's becoming more and more well known among kind of our core target market of those kind of marketers, head of web inside big, fast growing B2B organizations. It's a good time to kind of be on board, to jump on this train, because it's only going to get more popular and well known. So for us to be kind of a leading agency in the space is I think a smart decision, but only time will tell.
It sounds like it. Honestly, that's really smart and incredible. Okay, I'm gonna spin this around just a quick bit. When you flip it to the client side, though, and this is more out of curiosity of also having that agency and sort of working with clients, what does that end goal with Webflow look like for you? Because is it a case where you've worked with the clients and you sort of hand over the website to them? Because this is why I said, if it's gotten that good, I might come back. But previously, I just imagined it was incredibly difficult for non-design personnel, basically, to be able to then get into Webflow and say, hey, we're handling our website by ourselves moving forward without messing it up post-design process. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a good question. And without this being kind of a Webflow advertising call, they're not paying me to do it. But one of the good things, again, to come out of the Webflow conference this year was they've added this new mode called kind of the marketer role within Webflow that allows users to drag and drop pre-built elements onto a page. So a designer can go and set up components inside of the context of, say, a landing page template, and then a marketer can come in, marketer role, call it what you like, in build mode and say, I want to build a page using these pre-existing blocks. So they don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of class naming and sorting out the design system, whatever. That's all been done by an agency like us or by a designer in-house. And they hand it over to like a bit more of a BAU marketer, editor person who can then build out pages. And that's just for kind of static pages. Obviously, you've got the CMS kind of component for blog posts, news articles, that kind of stuff. They've always been quite easy to edit. But now increasingly it's easy to build these kind of modular pages and move components around. So yeah, we're really, really happy with the direction that Webflow is taking the product for these kind of slightly more longer term. I can manage the site myself. increasingly we're finding that marketers are feeling empowered to go and build landing pages using these pre-built components, which is great, but they do want us to have us around. They like having us there as kind of a bit of a fallback, like having us there for kind of the more visionary strategic stuff. So if they're building a whole new site or a whole new set of pages, or they're adding a new bit of functionality to the site, that's where we'll come and help with, on a retainer basis. We'll help them and be there to answer questions and provide support and strategy and create new components for them. But for the day-to-day, for making small edits, for rearranging blocks on a page, for running a quick experiment, that's often kind of on the client side now. So it's a nice balance, and it means that we aren't doing the day-to-day typos and like, can you swap this image out? Like, they can handle that. But what we can do is help with the more visionary stuff that really moves the site on.
That's really incredible to hear, because yes, that definitely was one of the things that informed my decision to sort of go away from Webflow. Because if you're taking on client, and even if you want to do a retainership, you're not particularly wanting to be that BAU fill in for clients, right?
Yeah.
And there are agencies who do that, and that's their job. But then at the time, for me, it's like, no, that's not the kind of work that I want to sign up to do. Okay, so still speaking about clients. So what kinds of clients and industries do you typically work with?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we don't have a specific kind of industry vertical, but we tend to focus on a specific type of kind of target clients. We like working with, like I said, kind of head of web, head of marketing teams that are kind of reasonably well established, usually at least 2 or 3 marketers in a company, inside kind of fast growing funded companies. And they can be early stage. Some of them are that we work with kind of more kind of on the smaller side, but we also work with big global established brands. I think the key thing is that a website has to be a real priority for them, because if it's not a priority for them, it's less exciting for us to work on. The stakes are lower, and also there's typically less investment that they want to make in it. We're definitely not the cheapest agency. We want to bring value, so working with clients where they really value the website, where it really is a growth driver, it is kind of our sweet spot. And our final caveat is that we tend not to do a lot of e-commerce work, at least at the moment, because it doesn't really fall within the kind of our expertise right now. And also it's very stressful.
That's what I just said. That can be very fluent. And I say this because in my day role, it's sort of, we're cybersecurity. The website interaction that our customers, the experience they get is more of an e-commerce based one. And boy, is it full on. So
yeah. And like the thrill you get on getting a really great e-commerce site up and running, and the payment flows are good, and the shipping and stuff, everything's all connected, and it connects to the back end system. Amazing. Like when that all works, it's great, but stuff does go wrong sometimes, and when it does, like there's sometimes a phone call at very strange hours where you have to pick up and jump in. And I think we found a really good niche and a nice balance of being on call, but also not on call all the time for kind of those B2B service type companies that are in need of services that we offer.
Okay. And to then lean into just the types of clients that you've talked about that you take on, right? You go from startups to B2B enterprise. But at the core of it is that marketing persona, basically. For me, I'm wondering, first of all, why marketing? Like, you could have picked any niche. Why that to begin with? And then off the back of that, what are the kind of struggles you've then seen since working with marketers in particular when it comes to sort of like growth in general?
Okay, yeah, good question. I think we kind of were naturally led towards working with marketers because inevitably in a lot of the bigger kind of more established companies we work with, they are kind of custodians of the site. It falls within their remit. And I guess if we're thinking about making a website for a company, it's usually either in the type of companies we work with, it's either the marketing team or maybe it's product team if you're helping to build part of the actual tool, the product, the solution, the software. We've done a bit of that, especially around kind of design, but I think our strength is really in helping marketing teams. And I think it's also a strength of Webflow. So it's kind of a few different things come together. It's a platform that we use. I think their niche is working with marketers. It's skills that we have. I think our niche is working with marketers. And together that's kind of why we landed on that middle point. In terms of the challenges they face, particularly around growth, often it's similar challenges that other people would face around things like budget. So kind of a general trend we're seeing with our clients in marketing is being asked to do more with less. being asked to focus in on key metrics like conversion. That comes up a lot, obviously. And I think the more that clients were asking for that over the last couple of years, we kind of started to realize, it'd be good to position ourselves as, conversion rate optimizers. We use our expertise in creating really high performing websites, but specifically hone in on, okay, for a B2B services company, for example, if you've got, an online piece of software, a SaaS, that customers typically land on your website and then they book a demo. That's the conversion point.
Yeah.
How do we optimize for that? How do we optimize? How do we drive more people towards that? So typically one of the biggest challenges they're coming to us with is, my boss has said we need to get more people converting, but I haven't really got a lot more budget to spend. I don't want to do a whole brand new redesign. What can we do with the elements we have? How can we do testing and optimization and experimentation to be efficient about it and make sure we're moving in the right direction? So that's typically the biggest challenge. Often as well, in the past, maybe especially bigger companies had a whole team of engineers and designers at their disposal to build out websites. So a lot of that stuff was done in-house, or they have a whole engineering organization to test new stuff and launch new pages. Increasingly, that budget is getting squished, and we're finding that teams are moving more towards relying on an agency and or relying on low-code tools like Webflow. And I think that kind of speaks to our first point, the first pain point, that they've got less money and resources. Something like Webflow means they don't have to have whole teams dedicated to managing the site infrastructure. They don't have to pay for separate headless CMS tools, all this kind of stuff. Baking all of that into one platform feels like a bit of a solution for decreased headcount and also kind of reduced budgets. So those are kind of some of the trends we're seeing.
Okay. And then obviously with more and more companies optimizing for growth and wanting more with less, I think what I found to be sort of rearing its head, it's been around for a while, but then just discovering it more and more, is this approach that you begin to see different competitors basically just peeking over. Like, oh, what are they doing? Oh, they've done that like that. Why don't we test exactly that and see if it works for us, right? And I see it happen as well in startups where perhaps we've not yet gotten just that amount of customers that we want to. We have these growth targets that we're trying to hit. And one of the easiest things is just look around and see what other people are doing and bringing this in-house. In your experience, first of all, has it been your experience? And then if it has, what are the dangers that you see with this copycat approach, especially in just like growth design, in the context of growth design?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question and something we speak with clients about a lot. There's a tendency sometimes to think of it as a quick fix and just say, oh, well, our competitors are doing this, or, oh, we've seen this company's doing this. Should we just copy that? Should we just do the same? Which, sometimes might work if you've got an identical overlapping group of users and they've tried and tested it and proven it to be really valuable. Sure, there are probably some lessons that could be learned, but the way we speak about it with our clients is around taking inspiration rather than kind of straight copying. And I think it's really important to look externally and seek inspiration. You definitely don't want to be designing your site in isolation, just internally thinking, what is the best thing we can do, without thinking about your users, without thinking about the market, without thinking about general design trends and technologies. Like, it's good to keep your eyes open and see what's out there, as well as looking internally and thinking about the business and what you're trying to achieve. And we may talk about this later, but part of what we've been speaking about recently is our kind of approach for growth, for especially Webflow marketing sites, but it could kind of be extrapolated for kind of all marketing sites. It's called our HOP marketing process, so HOP. The first step is around hunting for the right ideas, and that is externally and internally. So asking your teams, your people who know the business, what ideas could we add to our website to move the needle on traffic, engagement and conversions? But also looking externally, looking over the shoulders of competitors to see if there's any interesting ideas and trends that you've noticed, but not just copying them and relying on them, because they might not have it right either. You haven't seen their metrics. So the first step is H, kind of hunting for ideas. Second step is O, putting them in order, making sure you're prioritizing your ideas and going about implementing them in a smart way. And then P, proving their value with experimentation. So by doing that, it kind of helps us weed out ideas that are just, let's do them because the competitors are doing them. Okay, we can take that as an input and combine them with some other ideas that we've seen globally, or we've had the boss say, oh, we'd love to try this. Let's compile all of those ideas, then we'll prioritize them, then we'll test them. So that tends to be our approach.
I love that framework. I'm sort of happy to hear that you've sort of put it into a system, more or less, that you can continue to use for yourselves. But as more people also join the agency, it's like, hey, these are ways of doing it. These are standards of operation. So definitely love that. Okay, so how does your focus on these low-code or no-code tools like Webflow influence the way you approach group design? So you've talked about this experimentation, your framework for how you work on this. Talk to me, walk me through what that actually looks like in practice then.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll be transparent and say we're still learning. We're learning every day more things about growth, about optimizing for traffic engagement and conversion, and we'll continue to bring those to our clients every time we do a new project. So we try and bake those learnings from our growing team, because they've worked on some incredible brands, both at MakeBuild and beyond. We try and bake that into our kind of design and build projects. When we're designing a new website, we're thinking about, okay, how are we optimizing this journey? What is the user journey? How are we driving people towards that conversion point? So that tends to be a phase one. Then often there's a phase two, right? And maybe that's adding new features, adding new pages, whatever. But often it's a retainer model where we say, okay, now we've launched that original site, this new V2. It's a long term. We're going to partner with you over the course of 12 months to continue optimizing, experimenting, and growing your website. And that's really where we lean into the power of some of these low-code tools, because as I hinted at before, if we've spent phase one creating, designing, and building these great reusable components to allow you to spin up a landing page really quickly, to allow you to change button labels simply, to allow you to change the color of certain elements nice and easily, then when we move into optimization, that phase two, that retainer, it's really easy to experiment. And Webflow is getting even easier to experiment. Now they've just launched their optimization tool, so Webflow Optimize. It's kind of kind of in that same space as an Optimizely or VWO, but I would say maybe even more powerful, partly because it's integrated directly into Webflow, which is great, but also they've got some AI secret sauce in there, which will allow you to run an experiment. And then before you even get to the end of an experiment, if it detects that one of your ideas is performing better, it will start shifting more traffic that way.
That's amazing.
Kind of getting the benefits of that earlier. So yeah, it's really cool. We're still onboarding and getting up to speed with optimizing. It's a really new tool, but yeah, excited to work on it with some of our clients.
Okay, all right. Look, see, we know that the one thing when it comes to agencies, it's like, it's another design agency, okay? Right? Like there's so many design agencies in the world today. What has your experience been when you and Tim have sort of tried to say, look, how do we stand out in this industry that is very saturated?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think we get a lot of questions on this from junior designers, people starting agencies, but also, again, we're still learning. So, always looking for mentors who have trodden this path before. The way that we've been able to stand out is partly by selecting a niche by platform. So by saying we're a Webflow specialized agency, that's been great, because I think by showing that commitment to Webflow, they've showed a commitment to us, and we regularly kind of share leads and talk about interesting projects that we could collaborate on with the Webflow team. So that's been great. I think the second one is just generally around kind of putting yourself out there and speaking and being visible. I think not enough agency founders in particular are out there doing it. A lot of agencies, if they're doing any marketing, will be putting out, here's a project we worked on, here's another project we worked on, here's a case study. And that is kind of the classic path. And I think it's great. If you catch somebody at exactly the right time that they're looking for a project that looks like the one you just did, great. But I think increasingly we're trying to build a little bit of an audience now. It's part of the reason why we launched our growth practice, Flow Growth, and our platform, Flow Growth Club, where people can sign up for a newsletter and they get sent new growth ideas that you can try on your website every month. Part of the reason is to build up a bit of a following, build up a bit of an audience, an email newsletter list, right? But also on LinkedIn, like I'm recording videos, I'm putting content out there. I'm kind of making it my mission to speak at every Webflow community meetup in the world, maybe in the next few years. Like I've been to, I think this year we did Tokyo, London, Manchester, and a couple of others. And I'm just trying to just put myself out there. So anytime there's an opportunity, why not? Because it works for us in two ways. One, you never know where your next client's going to come from, but also you never know where your next collaborator or team member is going to come from. We're always kind of looking to expand the team, and even if it's just on a freelance basis or just collaborate with on a one-off basis with interesting designers, developers, and growth marketers increasingly from all over the world. So it's a great opportunity for us. So I think being visible and putting yourself out there is a great way to kind of make yourself known. In terms of specialization, picking that platform of Webflow has been really powerful for us. And the other thing that we've done to kind of make ourselves stand out is really lean into our experience. So Tim, my co-founder, and I both spent a number of years, Tim at smaller agencies and then at Accenture. I spent a number of years at Accenture, big, kind of corporate beast. I speak very fondly of my time there because I actually had an absolute blast. I learned a ton, but I think it gave us a certain kind of rigor and process and way of just approaching projects that I think maybe positions us as slightly unique compared to others in the industry. There's lots of people who've done big agency work too, so we're not completely unique. But that mix of, you're a Webflow agency with a background in consulting and design rigor and interest in design thinking and UX. That is quite an interesting blend. And then going out there and talking about it, that's been quite powerful.
No, I can understand that absolutely. I think, especially like I said, it's saturated. Finding what is your zone of genius is very important. When I ran an agency, it was my law degree I leaned in, so we're design and legal. And that was fantastic because for many clients, they obviously needed legal help, right? Yeah. In figuring their contracts out from like websites. You're building a website, you have your privacy and policy, you've got your website terms and conditions. Those are contracts that have to be updated and just kept in line and things like that. And even just like contract of work with potential clients that they go on to get this type. So it's always very important to think about that. But then you also mentioned a point that I think is worth sounding out as well, and that is the importance of understanding processes when it comes to working with clients. And it's one thing for you, like for anyone who's listening, it's one thing if you're freelancing by yourself and you it is important to have processes at that point as well. But then once you begin to move into an agency type of mindset, the stakes are slightly different. And having those, what we talked about earlier, is the SOPs and just defining your ways of working, defining your ways of communication with clients, defining how we work, how we get things done, how we communicate with clients, what is the cadence of communication, how do you keep that loop going, all of these things, which, like you said, you learn from your time in consulting at Accenture and things like that. It's so important, and I think those types of information are actually available on the internet. So please do your research if you're listening to this. But yeah, I just thought it was a very important point to note. Now, you and I have talked about flow growth, right? And I had the wonderful pleasure of taking a sneaky peek at the page before it went live, which is really incredible. And I loved every bit of it, quite frankly. I think it's a fantastic resource. But thank you. I'll let you talk about it. What is it? What problem does it solve? How did you develop this? What did you see in the industry that you thought, oh my God, this is something definitely that should be out?
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you so much for the kind words. And it was great to get your kind of sneak peek on it. And we had a couple of other folks in the growth space, the design space, and the marketing space just kind of get their eyes on it, because you guys are the people that we want to impress and we want to lean on to make sure we're keeping us honest, right? That this is the right kind of content. Okay. I very much appreciate that. So flow growth is actually the kind of the overarching name for our growth work. So whenever we're doing kind of growth work, optimization, and the resources and the services we offer under that banner, we tend to call that's flow growth by MakeBuild, just to give it a bit of a name for now that we're testing out. And then within that, the first product we launched is called the Flow Growth Library. So that's what you saw. The Flow Growth Library is basically the culmination of many years of expertise and interest and working with clients on growth. And it's basically a free compilation of growth hacks, if you want to call them that, proven to drive traffic, engagement, and conversion on your marketing site. So the way we formulated it is there's a website. So you can go to flowgrowth.club. You can have a look at all the ideas there. And we've kind of grouped them by either traffic engagement or conversion. And it's just meant to be a source of inspiration. As I mentioned before, we have that kind of 3-step process, HOP. You start by hunting for ideas. So it isn't just about getting ideas and then just doing them all. But the first step is just exposing yourself to ideas, getting inspired. So we thought we'd compile them together, put them on a website. And we also added a newsletter. So to get access to the full list, just pop in your email, and then every month we'll share some new ideas. We're going to keep regularly sharing inspiration as we come across. Some of those bits of inspiration will be from sites we've worked on. Some will be from others in the industry that are doing great stuff. But it's just about kind of raising awareness of the importance of growth as a practice for us as MakeBuild, but increasingly for our clients. So for example, we've got one in there that's like add an exit intent pop-up to your website to help drive engagement. So one of the ideas there is, you've seen this, I'm sure. It's kind of annoying, but you move your cursor to the outside of your browser window, and a little pop-up comes up saying, "Oh, it looks like you're going to go. Like, have you thought about this?" And obviously, it's important that you test it. And we're not saying this is good for everybody in every industry, but we found it can be helpful to recover users who are about to disappear if you give them a compelling offer or a reason to sign up. But rather than just saying, "Go and add an exit intent pop-up to your site," we just explain what it is, why we found it to be helpful, why it works, and also some best practice and consideration. So if you are going to do it, don't overuse it. Don't add it to a page that you've got a ton of other pop-ups and annoying things there, because you're gonna really annoy people. And also make sure that if you close the pop-up, you save that and you don't keep showing the pop-up again and again. So kind of compiling this knowledge that we've come across, this general best practice that we've learned, we're still learning too, but just kind of centralizing that. So we didn't see kind of a combined resource focused particularly on marketers, because a lot of this stuff for growth designers will be like, this stuff's already in the toolkit, I've used this stuff. There may be a couple of ideas in there that are fresh, but for the most part it's more of like a reminder. But for marketers, often they're like, I know we need to move the needle on conversion because my CEO says that's the focus for this quarter, but like, any ideas? Like, what could we do? So compiling those ideas together and kind of empowering marketers to use that as a bit of a source of inspiration has been the main goal. So that's Flow Growth Library. That's our first product. And like I said, we want to extend that. We want to add resources. We've got a pretty defined process. We'd love to add some kind of playbooks, and as well as our own services, right? So for clients who are interested in this stuff, workshops, we offer packages of work that you can kind of speak to us directly about. And this just kind of bolsters that. And again, it's about differentiating us as an agency, saying, we aren't just a Webflow design and build agency. We also help you with the long term, the growth, the optimization, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so it only just launched. Really excited to see how it goes.
It's incredible. And I think what I especially love about it is what you said. For us growth designers, we have growing number of resources around these things. So you've got growth design, for example. You've got mobbing. Newest one, A/B tests.design. Although I would say be mindful of those, because a few of those experiments are actually quite outdated and not really from the source of the company. Well, there's one that's been particularly pulled out around Pinterest, I think, and someone from Pinterest has sort of said, no, that experiment actually, they got the answers wrong of what actually worked.
Right.
So just sort of be mindful when you're using these tools. But I do appreciate the effort around it, where it's like a curated resource where people can continuously go to for inspiration, because it's just important for us to not necessarily, otherwise you're looking for ideas and you're actively going to 10, 50, 11 websites to be able to get a sense of, maybe I want to test this, but you don't understand the intent behind it. You don't understand what the outcomes were when people tested it. You don't understand why they made the decisions they made around this thing that you're looking at on the front end. So absolutely love that. I'm excited to see what you guys do with it and how it evolves. So fingers crossed and rooting for you. Right. Okay. So let's talk about UX principles. You mentioned and referred to user journey mapping earlier, persona developments in your marketing workshop. I have not heard of that in marketing workshop before. So first of all, when you first introduced it, how did clients respond to this?
Yeah, good question. I think in general, just taking a step back a second, just how we work with clients. Obviously, we started in 2020. It was very much remote first, we were all async, all that kind of stuff. And we lent into that for a while, particularly when it was just Tim and myself running the agency. But it kind of conversely, as we've got bigger as an agency and we're taking on bigger clients, we're almost leaning more into face-to-face where we can. So we only meet as an agency a couple of times a week for kind of co-working. But where we can, we try and connect face-to-face with our clients. And a big part of that is early on in a project is around doing workshops. And recently we've focused in on this concept of a growth workshop, where we ran one a couple of months back actually for a client that went really well, where we brought in the marketing team and we said, let's actually apply some user-centered design principles. Let's apply some lessons from the world of design thinking, some of those tactics, those activities, card sorts, persona mapping, user journey mapping, competitor analysis, like some of those things that maybe they're not doing on a daily basis. Maybe they've heard about it because marketing, design kind of adjacent. It was a nice chance to bring some of those. And I think there's natural skepticism whenever you're bringing ideas like this, when two guys come in their all black designer outfits and with a back stack of post-it notes and a Sharpie, there's like, oh, where are we going here? But they're usually really receptive when they see kind of the ideas that start coming out and the results eventually, they kind of speak for themselves. So clients love a workshop, and they've kind of really responded well to this kind of growth workshop where we're implementing these design thinking style activities, drawing on our expertise, right? This is what we did. This is our bread and butter back in our consulting days and our teaching UX days. It's been really nice to bring that to clients in the context of a marketing site. And not everything will work. It's not, you can't apply every single workshop tactic under the sun, but finding the right tactics and activities that work for each client is really fun. Like, we do a workshop planning session where me and Tim will often say, okay, for this client, like, I think this would be good, and then we'll mix it with this activity, then we'll take a break for energy levels, and then it's kind of choreographing, kind of thinking about the theatre of the day. And I've been really enjoying doing that.
I absolutely love that. But then I'm thinking of taking this into, where is the role of then data analysis within your work, right? With clients, how does that work? What's that relationship when it comes to, all right, I know you've just mentioned Webflow, you're excited with that possibility to begin to test and see, like, sort of get that data within Webflow itself. What have you got going on for that meanwhile? And how have you been able to sort of set that relationship up with clients to then be able to come back to them and say, aside from our proven experience of working with previous clients within your industry and niche, these are some data-driven or data-informed decisions for you to also consider?
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really good question. And it's not just about saying, oh, as designers, we think this will work. And it kind of goes back to our point before around, you can't just use what your competitors are doing and then just implement it and hope you're going to have the same result. You kind of need to test and optimize. And again, HOP, that final P, is around proving that the ideas are valuable with experimentation. So a big part of our process is to say, great, you've got some ideas that you found from your exploration. Great, you've prioritized them and you've got them in order to see which ones you want to work on first. But let's not just roll them out to all your users at once, especially if you're on a high traffic site with millions of visits a month, because that could be good, but also could be really bad. Let's measure the impact. And that, I think, is really beneficial for two reasons. One, it makes sure that the ideas that you're implementing are moving the needle in the right direction for traffic engagement or conversion. But also, it helps prove your worth as a client, like within your organization. Look at this amazing work we've done. We've helped move the needle on conversion by 2%. That's us. Amazing. But it also looks good for us if we can prove that, okay, you guys are on a 12-month retainer, coming up to renewal. Do you think you'll keep working with us? Oh, well, yeah, you helped us drive loads more conversion, and our technical SEO has improved, so we're getting more traffic through to the site from Google search. Like, yeah, it's a no-brainer. The amount we spend on you is much less than the value we get in new sales. So I think there's loads of reasons why it's really important. In terms of the how, thankfully, the optimization toolkit of software stack is pretty well established. There's loads of different tools out there. We're really excited about Webflow Optimize because it allows us to bring more into that Webflow ecosystem and just do it in a more seamless way. But right now we're using tools like Optimizely a little bit, although some of our clients are moving away from that now. VWO to a lesser extent. And also there's a tool called OptiBase actually, which is built by another Webflow agency, but it's built specifically for Webflow. So it's kind of, there's a precursor to maybe to Webflow optimize, but particularly great from a pricing perspective for kind of smaller teams just starting out with optimization, just allowing you to test, button label A versus button label B, which one leads to more conversions, checking out different colors or layouts or copy. And we've been using that for a fair bit. And with all of those, right, we write our hypothesis, say what we think is going to happen, run our experiment, review the results, and then kind of iterate and improve. But yeah, Optibase has been great. And the team who created that, another Webflow agency, are doing some great stuff.
Great. And with your background coming from UX, I wonder, how has taking a marketing focused approach to growth design, how has it been so different from when it's a product focused approach to design?
Yeah,
what are the unique considerations for each, and then the challenges you potentially have with each?
Yeah, good question. I think we did a lot of work when I was in my previous roles in UX. A lot of it was actually focused on like internal tooling. So a lot of the products we built were for clients, like big global well-known clients, but a lot of it was internal tools, so a bit less of a customer focus. So actually conversion and growth, even to a lesser extent, was kind of less of a focus on what we did previously. It was more around creating the design system and doing our user testing to make sure it's usable and understandable, but it was less around kind of saying, we've got these business goals that we want to achieve and these conversion metrics that we're trying to improve. So maybe it was a little bit less ambitious, whereas I think these days with marketing sites and that being our main focus, there's a real focus on the website being a big source of revenue, and therefore anything we can do to improve growth has a material impact on the business. Yeah, so maybe the stakes are a little bit higher these days, or I find it.
I mean, I find that as well within product design, there has been an increased trend in visual focused product designers, or just that visual craft has taken the industry by storm as well. So it's not so much sort of abandoning your product design background. It's more just, okay, yes, you are a product designer, but that visual craft is now just as important, because I'm finding that more and more companies are beginning to take an approach of their website being a product, literally. And so, it definitely is a signal within how the world of design is shifting as well.
And I love that. I love seeing kind of that visual craft kind of coming back. And I think within our world, within kind of marketing site design, increasingly we're having clients come to us and say, okay, we're launching this new product, or we're doing a launch week for this new set of features we're adding to our SaaS. We really want to make a splash. We want to trend high on Product Hunt. We want to make headlines, whatever. What can we do to make the site like really exciting? And I think something that one of my clients said to me the other day, which I thought was really insightful, was, it actually doesn't matter if, for this particular campaign, it doesn't matter if it doesn't necessarily hit the target customer within an organization straight away, because actually if it's compelling enough, if it's really exciting and visually impactful and inspirational and just really fun and interesting to look at, it'll get picked up by somebody in the org and it'll float around a bit and people share it on Slack and, have you seen this? And you should ping this to so-and-so in the finance team, because actually this looks like a good tool for them, but it caught my eye because the visuals are great. So kind of seeing these sites as a product but as a bit of a canvas as well for visual exploration is really interesting. And it's fun to kind of see agencies putting out just really cool, like visually impactful work. And we aspire to bring that to our clients wherever we can.
I love that. And fun fact here is, as you were speaking, talking about how just this growth of it popped into my head just a lesson from years and years ago when I did trends forecasting in one of my fashion classes. And it was interesting to note that across design in general, which I love that I've explored the breadth of design as like interior to fashion to software design. But regardless of what the discipline of design is, there are actual economic factors that tie into when the world demands more visually creative designs. And oftentimes it's typically when there is a downturn in economic standards or just like there is a recession or just things are not that great. Many times design shines because of that inspirational, aspirational part of it. And I feel like that is, with all the economic chaos that we're experiencing as well, we're seeing that turn towards just people wanting just more of a visual. Because, for example, Intercom's website when it was launched, right?
Yeah.
And how that was such a huge wow, and just like created this aspirational feel for people to look at that. I aspire to that. I want to do that. I want to create something that is that visually impactful. Yeah, just a random segue that popped into my head.
No, I love that. I love that. And at the end of the day, like we're creatives, and sometimes it's interesting when you get into kind of the growth and optimization and technical SEO side of our job. Sometimes it becomes a bit less visually impactful day to day, some of the work we're doing, but it doesn't have to be. I think it's nice to balance that against, but how can we bring some of the latest trends into the site? How can we find a really interesting visual style that we can apply to this thing we're doing? So yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm all for kind of these visual creative experimentations in kind of marketing site work as well.
Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about your Webflow talk. So as you know, Dan has mentioned earlier that they spoke at the Webflow conference, and just talk to us. You gave us an intro earlier, but I'm just wondering, are there other parts of that talk that you could share with us? What are the key messages from that talk that you think will resonate with our audience? And for anyone who's interested, where can they watch it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we had such a blast speaking at the Webflow conference here in London. And to be honest, it's been a bit of a bucket list item for us as a Webflow agency to go and speak at the Webflow conference. It's it's a real honor. We're really happy to go and speak, and the feedback was great. Our talk was called 20 Tactics to Optimize Growth on Your Marketing Site. It was snappier than that, I promise. But it's something like that. But the whole concept was we kind of clickbaity title a little bit with 20 ideas to optimize your site. And we had a full house, which is great. And we actually went through the first 5 minutes of just rapid fire 20 ideas, like idea number 1, add this, idea number 2, add this, idea number 3, change this, idea number 4. And it was, exit intent pop-ups, reducing the size of your forms and the number of fields. It was adding markup schema and stuff for SEO, all these things, but deliberately a bit overwhelming. And then the whole back and forth between Tim and I, who were presenting. Tim then said, great, so I'm just going to implement all these ideas. Thanks so much for watching. I'm like, no, wait a second. It's not just about ideas, just grabbing everything that you see your competitors doing, right? Or some trend and just throwing it at the wall and seeing what sticks. We have a process, and actually our real talk should be called 20 Ideas to Optimize Your Website and the Process for Doing so. So the rest of the talk was saying ideas are great, that's step 1. H, hunting for inspiration. Then it's about a bit of prioritization. So working with your business colleagues, working with your stakeholders to figure out, okay, we've got 50 ideas here. We can't just do them all. What's the most impactful one? Ranking them based on impact, confidence of business impact, and ease of implementation. So ICE, how should we rank these ideas? And then finally, P, let's prove that they work through experimentation. So we kind of took you on the end-to-end journey of being inspired, prioritizing them, and then actually testing them and just giving a high level overview of how that process works for MakeBuild and how we've done it with other clients, but also giving you that kind of the nice takeaway. So even if you got nothing else, you did get a couple of ideas and stuff. Jot down, exit, pop up, whatever. You can take that away for free. But hopefully the message we left people with was it's not just about the ideas, it's also about the process. And as we said, I don't think a lot of agencies in the Webflow space have really lent into that kind of growth design optimization kind of space just yet. So it's been nice to kind of do a bit of education really and kind of show people how we do it. We're not saying it's the best way, it's the only way, but for us that approach has been really powerful.
Absolutely love that. As you were speaking, so I'm actually speaking at a conference next week Friday, so it's my first one, so I'm like, okay, ideas, all right, thank you.
Yeah, please. Oh yeah, and to be clear, the conference is up on the Webflow site now, and also I think it's on YouTube somewhere, but I think it's like
we'll find.
So if you go onto Webflow, go and check it out. But yeah, please, like I love it when people take inspo. We took inspo from other people's talks to create this one. Yeah. I love giving talks and hopefully get to do some more in the future. Good luck with yours.
Thank you so much. No, that's amazing. I've also just been leaning more towards that, sort of what we were talking about earlier. It's why I do the podcast as well, because I'm nosy as hell. I want to know what other people are up to. But then beyond that, it's also how do we continue to craft this resource and like just curate different groups of resources across different areas that designers might either have less access to resources in them or just struggle to find the right kind of information around that. So yeah, I've been leaning
Yeah.
more towards that. So yeah, we're gonna be global like it.
Love it. I love that.
Yeah. Right. We've had such a great conversation so far. I'm curious how you see the no code, low code movement impacting the future of design in general, but then also within growth.
Yeah, I think no code, low code, love-hate relationship with that name, to be honest, because increasingly we do use a fair bit of code, but it's more about visual development, I think is what people are calling it now. I love that. And to be honest, I call it no code, low code, so that's my fault as well. But I quite like this idea of, kind of visual development, because you're designing and building, you're creating your website kind of visually rather than having to separately sit in a code editor and then go and check in your browser and hope it turned out all right. So yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff around visual development, and we're seeing more and more clients, big kind of global brands, lean into using visual development for their marketing sites. I think how it impacts the future of growth design, it allows for iteration a lot more quickly. So a lot of the clients we were working with before they moved to a tool like Webflow, they were doing experimentation, they were doing optimization, but often it was a case where maybe a marketer would have an idea or have a hypothesis that they want to test. Then they have to work with a developer who then implements that experiment and then sets it up in Optimizely or whatever. And they create this whole long workflow. And then a week or two later, okay, we're going to put the experiment live and see what happens. Yeah. With something like Webflow, with visual development tools, Framer as well, I'm sure, if you're using an optimization tool alongside it, you can move so much more quickly. So a lot of our clients, they'll say, we want to change the button label on the book a demo link on our hero. Can we try that? I'm like, yeah, sure. We can set it up today. And like within an hour, within minutes really, but back and forth with a client, within an hour, you've got the test experiment running, you've got some data flowing in. Within a couple of weeks, you can close off the experiment and implement. And tools like Webflow Optimize with their AI Optimize thing, where they can detect a winning variant early on, they'll move even quicker. So I think the trend I'm noticing is speed and ease and democratization of access. So it's not just the developer has to manage that. They have to fit it into their busy backlog because they're also working on product stuff. We've got to deprioritize the marketing site. Actually, now the marketers, as well as designing and building landing pages, they can now optimize and run experiments too.
Okay. Right. So to wrap this all up, it's been amazing chatting to you. What advice would you give to designers who are interested in specializing in marketing-focused growth design, whether it is in general or even within the Webflow ecosystem, since you've so wonderfully taken us in a deep dive into it?
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, I'm still learning myself, so I think one of the big pieces of advice I have for everybody in kind of the Webflow space in particular is to go and look for inspiration. The subject of inspiration, and look for the education and the content that people have been putting out around growth design, around SEO, around optimization more widely. We can leave the Webflow bubble sometimes. For folks who are interested in moving into that space within the Webflow ecosystem, I think it's a really good time to do so, because there's not a lot of experts doing marketing focused growth design for Webflow sites. So yeah, it's a really interesting time and space to move in. I would say go for it. I would say start talking to your clients about it. A lot of the time, if you're already working with a client on design, if they're a B2B SaaS type company, they're going to be thinking about optimization. They're going to be thinking about traffic, engagement, conversion. At least one of those will probably be a priority. So why not bring up the conversation? Why don't you ask some questions about, what is the most important priority for you right now? What ideas have you tried? Could we do a bit of a workshop to explore some ideas together? And I think our process of really going back to basics with UX and design thinking about your users in all of that, what ideas will motivate your users to take the action that you're hoping for to drive those business metrics, would be some advice that I would share. That tends to be an approach that's worked well for us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you for sharing your insights, your expertise, your experience, your everything. Thank you for sharing those with us today. It's been a fascinating conversation, and if you're listening to this, be sure to check out the show notes for all of the links that we've talked about. We will drop, share. Dan, please share with us, where can we find you and MakeBuild?
Yes, so you can find us online at makebuild.studio, or one word, makebuild.studio. And we've just launched our Flow Growth offering and our Flow Growth library. And you can access that either via our makebuild.studio website or directly at flowgrowth.club.
How about you?
Me. So where's the best place to find me? Probably LinkedIn, to be honest, these days. It's fast becoming my favorite social network, which is,
Same.
I can't believe I'm saying those words, but you know what you get with LinkedIn. So everybody's there for a reason. It's to share insights and find new clients or their next job or whatever. So yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn if you just search for MakeBuild, or you can search my name, Dan Foster. You'll find me on LinkedIn for sure.
Great. All right, let's move into the lightning round then.
Okay.
I'm going to go as quickly as we can. So what are the top 3 products that you use daily and you love?
Okay, the first two are kind of boring, but kind of essential for me and as an agency owner. So a really great calendar. I use Fantastical. That's kind of my calendar app that brings in all of my different calendars. It combines my iCloud from my iPhone with my Google calendars for work and my personal stuff. So I love Fantastical. It's kind of a standalone product, and I think it's great. I love Notion. I use Notion every day. I don't know if we were just talking about digital products here, but I've gone down the digital product route because it's a digital design podcast after all. So Notion I love. I use it to organize like my entire personal life, but increasingly my work life as well. We have kind of our project backlogs on there. We have dashboards with clients on there. We manage our finances on there. So I love Notion. And then a real physical product. I love the e-bikes that you can now just rent kind of by the minute around London. I find it a really great way to get around, try and avoid the tube where I can. It's just hectic, especially if you're going at rush hour. So I love an e-bike. I used to use Lime a lot, increasingly using Forest bikes. They're lovely products, and they're also a client of ours. So I have to shout them out.
Oh, okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
I actually saw it for the first time. I think it was last week. And I was like, oh, Forest. Okay.
Yeah.
This is coming up. Oh, that's nice. Okay. So what's one design resource that you keep going back to?
Other than flowgrowth.club, which I have to shout out, obviously. I really like sites where you can just kind of get that visual inspiration for website design. So I think One Page Love comes to mind, and also like for really specific kind of niche, like footer.design. It's that kind of collection of chunky website footers that seems to be a bit of a trend lately, but I love that, just collecting all of that stuff in one place. And I swear I saw recently a directory of directories, because people have made so many of these. Someone was like, I'm going to make a website that lists out all of the inspiration sites. I was like, I love that. It's just getting so meta now. But
Send me a link, please. That's so cool. Okay, so some books you like to recommend.
Books to recommend. I've never been a massive reader, but the last year or two I've tried to read more. I got myself a Kindle, so it's like kind of a before bed, no kind of bright, kind of engaging iPhone, TikTok scrolling, and just kind of a simple ebook before bed. And I've started reading the Daily Stoic. I find that really interesting, kind of Stoic principles and lessons and philosophy from kind of thousands of years ago and how they relate to kind of modern day life. I find that great. So that's kind of my go-to. Yeah, I read that every day.
Love that. And if you were not a designer, what would be your profession?
Kind of my childhood dream for a little while was to be a pilot. I love air travel. I love planes. I'm always traveling wherever I can. So I think probably pilot or DJ. I'm an absolute amateur wannabe DJ. I'm pretty rubbish, but I think I'll probably have more success as a pilot. Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite food?
Pizza, without a doubt. I love a pizza.
Which one?
Okay. Oh God, yeah. Well, pretty much all pizzas. I love everything from like a Chicago deep dish kind of style, heavy hitter, all the way through to like a thin, like Neapolitan style classic margarita, and even just like a Domino's from time to time, which sounds sacrilegious, I know, but one of my old housemates she was Italian. She's from Milan, and she came to me one day and said, I know people are going to hate me for this, but my favorite pizza is Domino's. So as soon as she said that, I was like, well, if you say that,
okay,
if you say that, then I'm allowed to say it too. So I like Domino's. Yeah.
Okay, all right. And finally, what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie? Probably got two. I love Lost in Translation. I've traveled to Japan a few times, and yeah, that movie always brings kind of the memories back. I love that movie. And as well, kind of a childhood movie, but like there's this like sci-fi movie called Apollo 13 about like the rocket launch, which for some reason always really resonated with me. I love like the problem solving that they do in that movie, where they're trying to figure out how to get the rocket back, and kind of there's a really tenuous link to like website development there, where you've got a problem and then you're trying to figure it out before launch. There's something there. But yeah, those are my favorite two.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Dan. This has been incredible. And for anyone listening, I hope you have had as much fun as I did talking to Dan. And we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you so much. Bye.